All right, welcome everybody. I'm filling in for Brent here for a few minutes while he repels enemy hordes at the Brent compound. And tonight we're just going to talk about whatever subject comes up. I think we'll start off with the super low-hanging fruit is the Supreme Court today delivered a 9-0 decision saying Trump could stay on the ballot. I don't know about you all and stuff, but that is the first time that I can ever recall all the Supremes agreeing on anything. So that's pretty freaking cool. But before we get too deep into some stuff, let's go around the horn and see who's here tonight. Hey, Brent came back. All right.
You gonna introduce me, Les? What the hell? Introduce me on your show. No, hey, sorry about that, guys. I had to put up an animal. I freaking have a zoo in my house, but welcome.
No, I told everybody you were under attack, man. don't blow it.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, a couple squad of NVA sappers was trying to infiltrate my backyard. You guys know how it is. So, any event, yeah, going around a horn. We got the good Doc on tonight. Welcome back, Doc.
Hey, thanks.
You don't really need an introduction. Everybody knows who you are.
Yeah, I get in a lot of trouble for that. Okay.
All right, we got good old Richard, who hasn't been on for a while. Welcome back, brother. He's a patriot down in Florida. He's been to the One Shepherd Leadership Institute many a times, and brings that great perspective. So welcome on. And we will have some other guys jumping in here in a while. So we'll see when they get here. Anyway, my shit's all jacked up. Here we go. All right, there we go. I'm situated. Let's kick this. What we got? You introduce Supreme Court, right? That decision?
Yeah.
All right. Isn't that nuts? All of them unanimous.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
Yeah. How often does that happen?
I don't recall ever.
Yeah.
I mean, the closest thing I ever seen to was like maybe when it's 6-3. I think I remember an 7-2 one time a long time ago, but usually it's right down the freaking middle, 5-4 on every freaking decision. So, I mean, if you can get all those people to agree that Trump should be on the ballot, that's pretty freaking definitive. I don't know what else anybody could say.
It's not just definitive. What's the message it sends to? I would hope it sends a message to all political parties, but specifically to the Democrats. What does this say about weaponizing our election process? Hopefully, it says something to them. It says, "Hey, you're absolutely wrong here. That if 9 out of 9 Supreme Court justices can't find any grounds for you to stand on, you're just reaching. This is. I'm not going to say it's criminal. That would be hyperbolic. What I'm going to say is this is just completely unethical."
So if you back up, going to, I think it was Colorado that was the first one to do this. If I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, guys. When that decision was reached at like the Colorado Supreme Court, it only ruled by like one justice. Like it was split too, and we're talking like, all of them are left wing, judges. Right. So when you have like a narrow victory at that level, like it's doomed from the get-go. And so it blows my mind. It doesn't blow my. I'm not surprised, but when you watch these left-wing pundits out there and they're just like, stumping for this as if the Supreme Court is wrong. Or that it was a good decision or a good case. I mean, come on. None of.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, none of the President Trump, and none of the people on January 6th were charged with the so-called insurrection. None of them were charged with that crime.
Well, I mean, so my point is this: I on one hand. Look, it comes down to the Democrats didn't want Trump because they don't like him. They don't want him to be on the ballot because they don't like him. And that's the end of it. I don't want him to run because I don't like him and I don't want him to win. And that's not how our system works. Hey, there we go. Rock us on. And so anyway, so they say, hey, I don't want him to be on this ballot. Now, then they gave the pretense, well, he's a criminal. Okay, maybe he hasn't been convicted yet, but he is a criminal in my opinion. And this is the, Democrats talking, saying, and to which I say, who in the world would be in Washington, D.C. if we got rid of all the criminals? I mean, street cleaners? Barmaids? Who? That's not a hyperbolic question. Seriously, someone tell me, well, my senator, representative, president candidate isn't a criminal. Then they're not a politician. They're not in politics. Well, that's a prerequisite to get in. Yeah, I'm just absolutely dumbfounded. And you guys know I'm so critical of Trump, man. I'm so critical of this guy.
Some things are just right and wrong. This one was so easy. It was so easy. And there's also the thing is, look at the slippery slope this was. Because if, say, they ruled the other way and said, yeah, Colorado can do this, that means Colorado, Maine, Illinois, pretty much every blue state would have kicked him off the ballot. In retaliation, every red state would have kicked Biden off the ballot. And nobody would have been electable. We'd have had a crisis on our hands far, far bigger. I mean, this had to be the easiest call. I'm almost wondering if the 9 of them sat together and said, all right, anybody bring the TV or something? We got to kill about an hour before we it shouldn't have taken more than 3 seconds to come up with the decision.
Before we tell the kids no, this is what always amazes me, is that we create weapons that we are, whether it's weapons of war or weapons of politics or economics or whatever it is, we create these weapons and we're absolutely convinced no one's smart enough to use this on me. No, we're going to create this and dominate this weapon and no one else will figure this out. I'm agreeing with you. Les, if that had passed, it would have been all of about 11 minutes before Biden was removed from states' ballots and said, no, we've got all this stuff in Ukraine. You're a criminal, stuff at the border. Nope, we're bringing you up on charges and you're not on any ballots. That would have been the end of that.
That's a great point, Doc. I mean, can you imagine the precedent that would have established?
Oh, it would have been absolutely horrible. We'd have been in Somalia in one election cycle.
And we're one election cycle away from being in Somalia. Let me point that out.
I don't know why Randall's in the comment section when he's supposed to be on the panel.
Yeah.
That's a great line, though. Who would steal all of our money? Yeah. I mean,
point taken.
Yeah, someone's got to do that. Anyway, so no, I didn't hear about this. Was this today that the okay.
Yeah, it happened just about lunchtime, Doc.
Yeah, that's breaking.
Wow. Well,
I just can't believe the amount of legal attacks that President Trump has endured. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And then it's so blatantly political and double standard, like the classified documents cases, for instance. They just found it just came out with a report that Biden had the documents. He knew he had them. He did a interview with an author and said oh, I'm not supposed to have these in the interview. That was in the report. And what happens in the end? Oh, he's not he's not sound.
He's a fucking vegetable is what they said.
It's unbelievable. So you're not going to charge this president, but you're going to charge this president. Really? Right.
Well, I mean, this is going to backfire on them. It already has. Look, I tomorrow's Super Tuesday, which means I think something like 35-40% of the states have their primaries tomorrow. But states have already had, and don't ask me which is which, but some states have already had their primaries. And if I'm not mistaken, if I'm doing my math right, Trump is carrying 80%, his 80%. His next competitor is Nikki Haley, and she has 14%. Okay. This is a foregone conclusion. And So anyway, so that's a big thing going on tomorrow. It's crazy to me that first off that he's going to even be the candidate, but I can already tell you I'm going to vote for him. This is a guy who refused to vote for him for the first time because I thought he was just a clown. I thought this was all I kept waiting for the gotcha, that this was all just a big trolling effort. And then it didn't happen. It was not a gotcha. And he actually won the presidency. And I was dumbfounded. I'm like, oh God, where does this put us? And I did not like his election, or excuse me, his presidency. I didn't like what he did with bump stocks and all that other crap. And so I have to say, I voted against him. I wanted him and then celebrated the fact that he lost. And trust me, I wasn't celebrating Biden's win. But I was celebrating Trump's loss. And to say that, so I don't want to say that I have any vitriolic hatred of Trump. That just isn't true. I just don't want him as president of the United States. What has happened to Trump since the election? Let me put it that way, because I don't believe that he lost the election. I don't believe that he won the election. I believe we'll never know what happened to that election. And that's what the most credible people out there said. When you look at all the data, and the data crunchers said, we'll never know who won that. But the media, news media, came right out and said, we announced that, that Biden is the winner. Okay, what a bunch of horseshit. But so that's what happened. Hey, there he is. That's what happened, as we all know. And since that point, let me use the colloquialism. Since the stolen election, they could have just left this man alone, but no, they had to turn him into the second coming of Christ. They did. They turned him into the underdog. A billionaire turned into the underdog, but that is in fact. Ooh, man, we got some wicked feedback. Do you guys hear that?
Yeah, it's Jared's comms.
Oh.
Shouldn't be. I'm on my headset.
Huh.
It's
Weird.
probably your mic or something. If you can mute your mic.
Got it?
I'm working on it.
Yeah. Anyway, the point is that I'm just saying what a lot of other people in America are saying today, and that is that they bullied this man so much. Oh, damn it, we lost him. They bullied this man so much that they made him an underdog, and then they made him something of, again, a gross exaggeration, but I don't know what else to call it. Now he's something like a messiah. He's like this messiah figure because, I will take all the sins of the American political, injustice, and I will come back and I will do right by America. Yeah. I mean, it's a symbolic vote, but he gets my vote just because of what the Democrats did to him. I'm like, all right, you win. Yeah, that was a cruel injustice. They could have just left the man alone, but they didn't. So,
Well, I think you've hit on the irony of the situation there, Doc. You're right. If they'd have left him alone, these primaries would have been a much bigger fight for him. Haley and DeSantis and Scott all would have been a bigger challenge to him.
Yeah.
But, I think the average person who maybe, like in your case, didn't give a crap about Trump, when they all saw the bullshit, and the fact that the media, and they're going to get the lion's share of this blame, didn't even bother to have the pretense. They didn't even have bother to have the pretense of, oh, well, there could be this or that, or no, they convicted Donald Trump and then went out and found the crime and didn't even, be bothered by their own hypocrisy, like the documents. You could debate and say the issue's in doubt, whether were they declassified, were they not, were he allowed to do it, were they not? That's in doubt. What's not in doubt? Pence wasn't allowed to do it as Veep. Biden wasn't allowed to do it when he was a senator, and we caught them and went, wow, it's okay. So I think everybody's like, well, if by default it's okay for them to do it at lesser levels, then must be okay for the prez to do it. Well, it seems weird that your subordinate can do something that you as the boss cannot.
And to take that farther, here in just recent days, leading up to Super Tuesday, you've had one prominent Democrat after another prominent Democrat, past politicians, current politicians at the state level, at the federal level, and they're all on, coming into the news media, which is a whole other problem, but no one believes or trusts them. They're not credible. They're just propaganda, but they're coming onto the propaganda machine and they're saying very clearly, we won't let him win. We won't even let him win the primaries. We cheated him out of the last election. I guarantee you we will do it again. And we're going to dream up some more crimes against humanity that we're going to try and pin on him. And we'll keep taking this fight to it. I'm telling you, like the news anchors are sitting there going, I know we're propaganda and we're supposed to push propaganda, but just looking at the politicians across the table from them thinking, is this legal? Can she be saying this? I mean, watch, I'm sorry, I'm intentionally being vague, but just freaking Google it. You'll just see it one after another after another. I'm like, wow, unabashedly, you're so third world. Like we just said, we're going to become Somalia. I mean, we're right there, right now.
I think the combination of the excessive attacks on him, combined with everybody hearing about it constantly, and also feeling it in the wallet and everywhere, backfired on them big time. I mean, he was popular before in 2016. They just made him, like you said, second coming of Christ. I mean, it was all about him every day, all day, everywhere you looked. So kind of backfired on them.
Yeah, that's an interesting point too, Santiago, because they put Trump in this unique position for a politician where people can get on him about his defeats. Like we're all upset about red flag laws. We're all upset about bump stocks. But man, you look on the other side, Abraham Accords, him making peace over in North Korea, him not having new wars. I mean, you can clearly draw the conclusion, Crimea gets invaded under Obama, Trump's there, nothing happens, Trump leaves, Putin goes full force. So he's got some defeats, but he's got some wins to counteract it. When's the last time you saw a politician walk up with that?
Well, one big win was his Supreme Court. I mean, his appointments on the Supreme Court have delivered victory after victory.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Despite his bump stock and red flag stuff, those same Supreme Courts is generally good for the 2A. They haven't given me every decision I've wanted, but I have to admit they have been more pro 2A than anti.
Agreed.
I say he's going to win again, but I also say he's not going to be president again.
Ooh, whoa, unwrap that. What do you mean?
Well, he won in 2020. They made it where he wasn't president, and he's going the same route now. He's on pace to win it again. And I mean, with all the shit that they're coming up with and they're throwing, and I mean, I'd be surprised if they, if he takes the oath in January.
God, I'm trying to remember the woman's name.
Even with a win.
Yeah,
I'm not disagreeing with you, Rich.
I mean, I'm trying to remember the woman's name. Just like 3-4 days ago, was on again, CNN or whatever it was, and she was all but saying the word. She was getting really animated, and she's like, "Look, we stole the election from him last time. We'll steal it from him this time. He is not going to be the president." And I was like, "Lady," now she didn't say those exact words. I don't mean to put words in her mouth. I'm telling you, she was like, "Yeah, well, he's not." Last time, no, he's not getting it. I'm like,
there's one difference this time around over 2020. Poll-wise, Trump was behind Biden most of the time. Everybody knew it was going to be a squeaker. This time, he's way out in front. It's going to be harder to do things than it was last time. Because I'm not saying that they won't do it, and I'm not saying that it won't be tried. It's just going to be a whole lot harder to do things.
Going to be a lot more blatant.
Be blatant. Or it could come down to Bush versus Gore, where the Supreme Court decides it.
Well, I mean, if the Republicans lose this next general election, specifically for the presidency, and it's because of like all these mail-in balloting and all these other little issues that popped up because of all the stuff they introduced at the last minute for COVID, right? If Republicans do not have countermeasures in place, like poll watchers, and if they not gotten the hands on the reins, they had 4 years to get everything in place. Like Florida with Ron DeSantis, like what he did there and putting protocols and procedures in place to help mitigate all these shenanigans that happened in the 2020 election. Like if we don't have that shit in place, shame on us.
Yeah.
So
100%.
Zuckerberg boxes and all that bull crap. Like if all that stuff isn't head off by the time we roll into that general, dude, that's shame on us. We should have known better. First time, shame on me. Second time, shame on you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Or
Yep.
sorry, Mueller.
Yeah, I knew what you meant. Yeah,
Knew
yeah.
what you meant, brother.
So a few predictions then. Hey,
Oh,
Bill.
What's up?
There he is.
Cheers, bro.
What's going on, everybody?
It's like the Shepherd's Council now.
I was about to say, starting to look like a meeting. Hey, are you in the new house?
Yeah, just starting to get in here. I haven't really moved in, but it's a little closer to work, so that's why I'm in a different room and lighting's all jacked up. So I haven't made my office yet.
All right. I was going to ask predictions. If Trump, well, that's hardly, okay. When Trump wins, let's pretend he takes office on this one. And that Santiago is wrong. Trump wins and he takes office. What are your predictions here? Like, the economy, what do you think is going to happen legally? What do you think is going to happen with Ukraine and Israel? What are your predictions when he takes office?
I mean, funding would probably be the first thing I'd say. Stop the funding, cut the funding, turn his attention to the border, obviously. I mean, I think he's going to attack those two things. I mean, he should, It's what everybody's been asking for. And it's been a hot topic, over a year. So, or longer than that. So,
yeah,
I think we're going to see civil unrest on the level that makes 2020 look like the good old days.
Wow, really?
Think about what happened when he got elected.
Oh yeah.
Remember, you live here, Chris. You saw what Washington was.
Oh yeah.
Remember inauguration day? Around the freaking corner, vehicles were on fire.
Yeah.
Mostly peaceful protests.
Yeah.
But it was full blown. And I mean, compared to what happened the day Trump got elected, January 6th was fucking amateur hour.
yeah.
I mean, and January 6th compared to the 2020 riots was amateur hour.
Yeah.
And yet that's not an insurrection. Every major U.S. city across the nation was on fire.
Yeah. And it's going to be way worse. The left will not accept this. They will not accept this. This will any outcome to this election that does not have their guy winning, because they'd rather have a freaking mentally incapacitated vegetable and stuff than a real functioning human being. They're going to go berserk. And here's the problem with going berserk. This is where the real divide's going to come out. It's going to come out where the blue cities are going to tear themselves apart. Red places are going to clamp down on it. And it's going to be just like everything, like Portland in 2020. How many months did that go on to the point that the feds had to pull out? They had to stop defending the courthouse because, you're being mean to the people attacking and trying to set the courthouse on fire. And I think this time around, Trump, whether you like him or not, tends not to make the same mistake twice. He let the riots happen last time. He's going to crack down this time, and it'll become this very vicious cycle.
I agree with Les. I think this time it would have to be where people actually put their feet down right away and try to stamp down these peaceful protests so that it doesn't get to the level that it did in 2020. And we're seeing a lot more cooperation through the states, the red states, especially when they're sending down people down to Texas and whatnot. So I think governments in the states are looking at it and going, hey, we can come to a common goal. We need to make sure. And I'm sure everybody's thinking the same thing. Hey, if Trump is to elect it, they got to be thinking in the back of their head, this is what we possibly can. So now it's time to start making those plans to help. I remember Brent and Doc and Les and all back in 2020, it was just, everybody was on edge and shit was burning all over the place. And I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but we have to look at it as, we've seen it before, and it tends to be one side does it a lot often than the other side, although they want to say that the right side, or however you say it, was the worst since 1865. But we all know that whoever can just look and see, or people that live through in these towns know that that's not the case. But people got to be prepared. They got to be ready, because I think no matter who wins, it could possibly be like that.
But like Brent stated earlier, I mean, if countermeasures aren't in place for the voting and all that shit, we should have it in place for the reaction for him being elected as well. I mean, states got to have this on their mind. It's got to be on the agenda, for a potential whatever, Definitely should be a conversation at the state capitals.
And I think it's going to be a test, too, when the next Supreme Court hearing happens, they think in June, too, in regards to the other court case that he's going. And, if the left gets another ruling on the right side, they may be testing it a little sooner.
Valid point. Well said.
I can't wait if Trump does get reelected. I can't wait for the whole election denial stuff to flip-flop again, right? Because, I mean, when Trump won the first time, what did we hear? Oh, he's an illegitimate president because of Russia. Russia infiltrated and stole the election from Hillary. Like, that's all you heard for 4 years. And then, Trump loses in this next election, and, all you hear from the left is, oh, election deniers. And we had legitimate fucking concerns, right? All this bull crap with COVID, all these mail-in ballots where they were just accepting them, no verification of signatures, no disregarding ballots in terms of not meeting the proper protocols and stuff, and Zuckerberg boxes and all this crap, all this stuff that happened in all these swing states. And, oh no, you're election deniers. But here they are with their Russia hoax that went for 4 years, and they act like that never happened.
Yeah, I wanted to take up this one comment here from New York Outcast. It says, if they want to go crazy, don't be mad when the average person doesn't take it. Hey, here's one thing. I agree with the sentiment, but know this. They proved in 2020 that one side can do whatever they want without obstruction. Kyle Rittenhouse proved the side that fights back will get steamrolled. Yeah. Look at all these people from Jan 6 that have been locked in solitary for years, or this reporter that just got arrested for reporting on it and calling out some inconsistencies in police testimony, and they arrested the guy. If you are on the right and you stand up, be prepared to get stomped.
Yeah, okay, that's a good point. But I'll tell you what, there's a couple other things we need to think about, because I was going to bring up Kyle Rittenhouse as well, Les. So here's the thing. If it goes that way, and there's a very high likeliness that it will. We all know that. We've seen it in the past, and it's going to happen again. There's a couple things to consider, though. Overwhelmingly, the damage, and I don't mean entirely, but overwhelmingly, it was to blue cities, right? It was Democrats burning down their own cities. And I think there's a bit of a forcing function there, because let it burn. Let it burn. That's your people that, you're crapping in your own backyard. And you can say, well, then they'll have to call out their police force. Maybe they will call out their police force. Maybe they won't. But the thing that I think was really interesting about up in Wisconsin in those conservative, towns, and that's where Rittenhouse and the different citizens group went and started cleaning up and started, putting out fires and all of this stuff. Rittenhouse, when police push on the illegitimate behavior, it incites them. There's more people trucked in. The billionaires come in and truck more people in because, look at this, the government is oppressing us. All we are is peaceful city burners and looters and murderers. But mostly peaceful, and they're trying to oppress us. Rittenhouse shot 3 people. He did it very selectively, showed incredible restraint, killed 2, wounded 1. That demonstration was over. That demonstration, that riot ended that night.
That goes back to the old thing in India. When India was leaving British control, they used to have a thing called signing the paper, where the Indian government was still using British troops to keep control of things.
Oh, yeah.
And when a riot got out of hand, an Indian officer would sign the paper authorizing the British to use force. And the British found out after a while that riots are controlled by either one person or a very small group. If you find the person and take them out, the riot dissipates. That's what Rittenhouse did. He found the organizers attacked him. And so the riot disappeared when he took out the organizers. They might not have been official organizers, but they were clearly people directing action. And that was the thing from the British experience. And Rex Applegate, in his books on riot control, wrote about it and stuff. If you find the ringleader, you can take it down. And that's why in modern riot tactics, you have the thing where the group, the law enforcement will go in their formation, snatch the guy and pull him out and all that. That's because if you take the leader out, riots tend to fall apart.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. What I'm saying is Rittenhouse gives us a unique perspective. It does. And it's a unique case. It isn't that the government was coming and shooting people. This has happened before. And it's happened on much, much bigger scale. And all it did was add fuel to the fire. Rittenhouse, when he pulled the trigger, the flame went out. And you're right that a part of that component is that he was hitting some pretty important influencers, let's say. They weren't necessarily the leaders, but they were the influencers. So he took them out. Yeah, I get that. But I think it was also that instantly America was saying, here's our hero. Here's our hero. He's not a soldier. He's not a police officer. He's just a private citizen. He's a 17-year-old kid that showed incredible restraint, and he defended himself. And I think it was like, okay, this is the example. This is the example of good. And I think it scared them to their very core. They're like, wait, hold on. We're not allowed to burn down businesses. We're not allowed to shoot people to death at intersections without any kind of repercussion. And now Americans, you're just going to let 17-year-old kids come out and gun us down right in the middle of our crime? Well, I'm going home then.
I want to know if anyone was held to account for being an organizer, kind of like what you were talking about, Les, during the 2020 riots.
Absolutely not.
Like here in the state of Texas, there's a law on the books called inciting a riot. And if you're the man, if you're the organizer, and that shit goes south, like you can be charged for that. And like for the life of me, I don't understand how you haven't. If they were, you didn't hear about it, right? Any of these events that took place with like Antifa or BLM across the nation. I mean, how many people were killed and how much property damage was done in these major cities? 43,
I think, it was the Independent. I think it was the Independent that did their own count, and they said, look, by our count, it was this is before before the elections, right? Before Trump and Biden's election. But it was calling it out, saying, look, that BLM and Antifa have done all this property damage. They tried to estimate what that was in US dollars and all this other stuff, and have tormented the American people for 4 long years. And they said, from our count, they said, we don't know how many were injured and wounded and hospitalized, but we can count 43 fatalities that are attributed to BLM and Antifa rioting in those 4 years. Now, 43 doesn't sound like a whole lot of more people die on our highway in a single afternoon, right? But I'm saying these people were targeted. They were killed.
Well, it's like the police captain was a David. I think his name is David Dorn. He was a retired police captain, and he was trying to prevent some theft. And I don't know if it was his store or if his buddy's store. I think it was his buddy's store. And the guy was shot in cold blood, and the merchandise was looted. And he just sat there dying on the sidewalk, and somebody fucking filmed it with a cell phone. I mean, Sickening.
Yeah, retired and going out there after standing in the line for so long, going to help the buddies out, and then get shot down in cold blood while dudes just freaking film it and shit.
Yeah. Well, that's who you're up against.
Now, according to the Department of Justice, 300 people have been charged with demonstrations nationwide. 300 for the whole nation.
For 4 years. Yeah. Meanwhile, BLM, founders were, how many houses did they find her with? Was it 8? It was 8 mansions that she purchased, and she absconded. This was the one that said, yes, I am a Marxist, but I'm helping BLM, I'm helping oppressed Black people by buying 8 mansions and showing you how to live right. Live by my example.
And support after that. Amazing.
Yeah. They weren't very happy with her after that.
Hey guys, I want to welcome to the chat Randall with Grunt Proof.
What's up, dude?
Thanks for jumping on tonight. I don't know where you were UA at the beginning, man. I don't know. I found out the other night you cheated on us on our stream. Remember when he was with us, and then he bounced and never came back? He went to another stream.
Did he really?
Yeah, little cheater.
It was already planned, man. Yours was last minute. The other one was already planned.
Yeah, I mean, but if this was like a relationship and our stream was a really hot, blonde, beautiful chick with double D titties, you would have came up with an excuse for the other stream, sorry, man, something came up. But we were the ones that got kicked to the curb. So,
I mean, we do have sex robots, so we got that going for us.
Yeah.
To say, man,
Sorry, Doc, you waited too long. I had to deploy it.
No, it's a commandment. Thou shalt not have large-breasted, hot blonde women other than me. I mean, that's... Anyway, where were we?
I don't know. I got sidetracked after I started talking about blonde women.
It's a good thing you specify women this time.
Okay, I gotta tell this story. I gotta tell. This was when we were in Iraq, and we're coming down to our final. I think we're probably 4 or 6 weeks out from hitting. We're done. We're turning everything over to special forces with the Iraqi army, and out of nowhere, actually, just a little before that, we're out there off the reservation. I mean, we saw the military drive by and fly by once in a while, but our military was the Iraqi military, so we all just went native, But eventually, the 30th HPCT came out from North Carolina and just went, surprise, 3,500 people. I mean, there's 100 of us advisors, and we're and 700-man battalion, Iraqi battalion, and 3,500 people just show up and go, wham, and our little tiny compound, our little outpost is right in the middle of this. So it's kind of cool because suddenly, we're just months away from, rotating back to the States, but we're like, hey, man, we get hamburgers and French fries. So this was really cool. Well, what they told us is they said, hey, man, they're coming out with 3,500 people, and there's something like 120, 130 women in there. And we're like, women? We haven't seen women in a long time, So I was married, and I'm faithful and all that stuff. But some of the advisors weren't married, and they started hooking up. And I'm not going to name names, but one of them was my buddy, and he was hooking up. And one time he's running logistics on something. I don't remember what it was, but this soldier, she steps over there and she says, hey, she calls over to him, and he's I'll call him Dave. And so Dave is like, hey, look, I need you to do X, Y, and Z. I got to get these logistics done. Your unit isn't doing all this, blah, 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 blah. She kind of gave him some half-baked excuse. And he starts to really get angry at her, and he kind of snapped at her. And she's like a senior NCO. And she's a senior NCO. Anyway, so she stops, and she's kind of surprised that he yelled at her. And she's like, oh, Dave, I am so sorry. You're right. That was very unprofessional of me. Listen, the wind is blowing right now, and I can smell you, and all I can think about is you just being on top of me and making love to me. And so I'll focus. What is it you need from me? He's just sitting there going, I don't know, something stupid. I want to talk about what you want to talk about. And I thought, that is the smartest woman I've ever seen. That is the smartest woman. she was just there taking like a chewing, knife handing, all this stuff, and she just locked him up, and he couldn't remember what he was talking about.
Tactics.
What was that, tactics? I don't know what that has to do with Trump. The election. It's tied in there. Sex robots. That's all I'm going to say.
Sex robots. So sex robots ties into everything. So you're never off topic talking about sex robots.
It's true. It's true. That's how AI is going to conquer the world.
Dude, when they come out with like realistic sex robots, human beings are done.
Yeah.
I mean, all the guys that just like have no social skills, like what incentive do they have to better themselves? None. And they're just gonna,
I feel personally attacked. What do you mean?
I mean, that's everybody on the freaking panel here. Which one of us has social fucking skills?
Oh my God. Yeah, I hear you though. I hear you. It's game over, man. Game over. You get a lifelike, even remotely lifelike, capable sex robot with, some kind of AI that can tell a guy everything he wants to hear. The human race has ended.
What about with the implants like Elon Musk is working on? Guys will be it'll be like in Demolition Man. You're not having sex, but you just have like the imagery of it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's right. I'd forgotten.
I saw on the news earlier they were figuring out like basically a brain pacemaker. It's this little thing that puts out like 100 or so hertz in the brain to cure depression. And that's freaky, man, when we're fucking around with that. But the lady in the news story was very big. And, she's like, oh, I tried everything and all these drugs and all this stuff. And I'm thinking like, did you try fucking going outside and like walking around or something? I mean, that's pretty good for depression. Maybe I'm crazy.
No. That's right. What was the other one I was hearing? I know what it was. It's like they want to make a speech pattern. Hook it up to your brain or put something in your brain. And they said this is for people with like Alzheimer's and different like brain injuries. And so it will actually speak for you and it hooks into your brain. So yeah, they've got that. They also have some brain stuff that for, people who have like, not schizophrenia. What's the word? Now that's like where you're seeing and hearing things. The ones where you like shake, you can't control your body and it helps. So there's like some legit medical, I guess some legit medical stuff there. But yeah, you can see where this goes, right? Where this goes sideways from there.
Yeah. The other
we were afraid of
in the and what they're selling there.
Say that again.
That the other market is far superior than the demographic that they're making that for right now. Well, the reason they're making that, all those advancements and whatever, is for select, a minority. The other market is going to supersede that without a doubt.
Yeah.
And then you'll be able to get it on Amazon too, eventually.
freaking next day prime sex
There was
robots
a news
and
article.
depression control.
Yeah, I heard an interesting story on the news before the stream. So apparently China, in California specifically, like Northern California and Oregon, they're buying up farmland and they have a whole bunch of like illegal marijuana grow areas. And like this, I guess is a big thing. And like a lot of these illegal Chicoms that are coming across the southern border are going up there and working on these places. So freaking Chicom pot, I guess is a thing.
Yeah, a lot of them are Hmong.
Yeah.
One of their tribes, Hmong. And from what I've seen, they're not really. It's not good, but they're not like the dangerous ones, and they're not stirring up any trouble. But some of the ones up in like Northern California, there's serious cartel that have taken over entire neighborhoods, and you can. I don't know if it's still up, but I found a video on YouTube a while back when this started happening. The little town hall meeting they had about it. The cartel members were there. And so people were complaining about it. The sheriff and his deputies were talking about what they could do or what they couldn't do. One of the cartel guys stood up. He's like, "You guys ain't gonna do shit. You can't do anything. You have no power, you know." And the thing is, like, if you think about these rural areas, nobody wants to fight that fight, you know. Nobody's going to take arms and do. Law enforcement can't do anything. Dude living off a disability out there, they're smart. They don't just come in and violently take over. You know, if you own land out there and you're not doing well, they come in and say, "Hey, how about $200,000 a year just for us to use your land or the national forest next to your land?" And you don't say shit. I mean, Brent, you've seen where we're at for the Sear Challenge, driving through that neighborhood. All those people would take that. All of them, even the ones with the Trump flag out front.
I'm surprised, to be honest, that we haven't stumbled on that during the Sear Challenge.
I've been waiting on it. I just think they can't grow there. But we had some grows out in the area but the sheriffs did take them down. But yeah, it's you know, all the poverty combined with all that money and the lack of, you know, fucks to give. Pretty bad situation.
So back to Trump then. Build the wall. Is that, I mean, that's what Santiago was saying. I think Santiago was saying that's the first thing he thinks, or one of the first priorities of a future President Trump is build the wall and start cutting that off. Is that what we're talking about here?
Well, he has to. He is hammered on it so long that if he doesn't deliver on that promise, he's going to hamstring himself.
I don't know if it's going to be right away build a wall, but I think he'll definitely untie the hands of Border Patrol and all them to start reenacting a lot of the deportation stuff that was going on during Obama and tamper down during Trump and all. I think that's the first thing. Back in Governor Abbott and all down there just saying, "Hey, we stand behind you. You're doing a job right now. Let me get in here. Let me get all these the old regime guys out of here." I think the first thing he's going to do is not particularly the border. I think it's going to have to be something with Ukraine, because he clearly stated that if he got in here, that was one of the first things he's going to do. And then if Israel and Hezbollah are still going, he's got to do something with that. I think the big thing with domestically is just saying, "Hey, we have the back of Border Patrol and the Rangers and everybody that's down there. They're doing a good job. Keep up what you're doing. We're not going to tie your hands anymore, and we're going to start helping." But I think the first thing he's going to do is Ukraine and Israel.
I disagree, man. I think border.
Go ahead, dude.
Border is going to be number one. That is top priority in everybody's mind. It should be top priority. It's our country. Man. It's not, you know, I care more about our border than Ukraine's border. And literally on day one, you know, freaking reinstitute, remain in Mexico, all that, during the asylum seeking and all that. Take the Texas model, build the wall, freaking, you know, 6, 7, 8 strands of concertina wire piled on top of each other, put the buoys out in the freaking water, like the whole gamut, do it all, and deport those that are already here. I mean, just the remain in Mexico thing alone was, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, if any of you know, was like one of the most successful policies that he had that kept border number illegal crossings down significantly. So
that's why I said I think that he's going in to bring back his first policies and say, "Hey, Governor Abbott, keep doing what you're doing." I mean, the razor wire is working, it seems, in the areas that it's there. I mean, if you've seen aerial photos or anybody that's seen them straining that concertina wire, and hey, we don't care if you have the buoys in there or putting the Connex boxes. Of course, they got a lot of holes they can start filling too. But I know you guys there in Texas, you know, you're doing the best you can. I think the big thing is untying the hands of Border Patrol and saying, "Hey, you know, put them over there." Like you said, the Remain in Mexico thing was fantastic. It did what it was designed to do.
So I'll tell you why I think that would be a brilliant campaign. To focus on the border and border security is brilliant for Trump. And here's why. Officially, the Democrats disagree with that. Officially, right? and their politicians disagree with this, and their business owners and their academics and all the people that, they're ideologically opposed to a tighter, stricter border. But with busing to Chicago and New York and Los Angeles and Boston, they're screaming uncle. They are, they're furious. What they meant was, that's a wonderful thing. We should totally have an open border as long as they don't go farther north than, the border states. You keep them all there and you deal with the problem. But as soon as they were forced to deal with the problem, you saw their true colors come out. They want that border closed. And so I think by campaigning on that one, Trump gets milquetoast pushback from the Democrats. What's Biden going to say? No, we need to keep doing this, and I'm a traitor and I hate America. like none of his constituents are buying that anymore. They're like, nah, you know what? Shut that border down. And they're not going to come out publicly and say it, but I think they support it.
Oh,
Yeah,
their defense, their only defense is, the border's secure. That's all they say every time. And then what do you have? You just have endless video of like perfect formations, like company-sized formations of illegals sitting down, dealing with border patrol. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy that they're still trying to play that card.
But I tell you what, let me ask you this: Did we really need to see them get bust over there to see their real true colors, like you say? I mean, we knew before we bust them over there that they didn't want any of those illegals around anywhere they live. Like, we didn't need to see that to know how they felt about it, And I mean,
No, but the people who lived around them had to see it.
right? I mean, they had to endure. True. I mean, I guess, but it's sending the message home. But I think when he gets in office, cutting the funding overseas, period, immediately, putting a fraction of that amount of money that's been going overseas to resources on the border, to whatever agency, double the staff there, triple the staff there, whatever they need. That way they can secure the border and build whatever fucking wall or put whatever fucking wire they want to put there. But I mean, so much money that gets wasted that nobody in this country benefits from. Like, fuck that, leave it here. We need to fix that border.
You ain't
Yeah,
wrong,
I think
man.
that would be a good test. If you think about how dysfunctional and slow the federal government is, it's going to require the states. So Trump would have to come out and say, all right, states, you can do what you've been doing. I'll leave you alone until we figure it out. Because we might be 2 presidents down the road by the time whatever policies he puts in actually take place. It's the bureaucracy
I
up
disagree
there.
with you there, Randall. Only because, not talked about much, but fun little fact, right after 9/11, we sealed that border tight.
True.
Well, look what it
That
took.
border was sealed tight. And then we realized, we want to open it back up again. And it did. And it was about late 2002, early 2003, it started to open up back again. Because that's the time when the people started flooding back in. The Minutemen formed, Ranch Rescue formed, all the border groups started to form because the gate got opened back up. We could close the border immediately. One of the easy ways to do it is you go 1st Marine Division from Camp Pendleton to border, 1st Armored Division from Fort Hood to border. It's not hard.
Well, I would push back on that. You got a point, but I would argue that who is the administration that's actually going to enact the stuff the president signs? You've got a lot of people that got booted from the federal government for not getting their shots and stuff. The people that don't like us, they've been slowly infiltrating the actual administration that makes these calls and makes the funding and stuff. So if the funding got through the House, which what's the Republican record on passing anything we want? It's fucking horrible. Bush owned the House, both Bushes, Trump owned the House, like all 3 branches. But I do agree, like, something like that would work if you're mobilizing people. But then we got to remember, if the guy on our side starts mobilizing troops, we've set a precedent that the next president that won't be on our side, he's also going to start mobilizing troops.
I didn't say the plan was without risk.
Right. But I mean, that's why I think if I think Santiago might have said it, if the first action, Arizona and Texas, they were kicking ass, making their own decisions for a while. It's in the Constitution that it's the federal government's job, but if they're not doing it, the state should step up, and they were. And then the Biden administration just screwed them over. So I think that might be a less consequent, an easier way to go about it without possibly setting new precedents.
Yeah, I don't.
Instead of having that federal push down.
I don't want to pretend that I have all these answers because a politician I am not. But it seems to me, again, me being very critical of Trump, but it seems to me he seems to understand more about a stick and a carrot approaches to policies, to issues. And what I very specifically mean by that, we all know what a stick and a carrot is, but I all too often, for the voters to win the appeasement of voters, we go out with the carrot and we say, yeah, we've got this carrot. We're going to give the horse a carrot, and we're never going to even talk or show the stick. And everybody, oh, look how benevolent he is. He gave the horse a carrot. Or vice versa, we go out with a stick and we say, I'm going to beat this horse till it does what I want it to. And then we do it. And then again, it's appeasement. People are like, yeah, he's beating the horse. And I'm like, yeah, but he never showed the carrot. You need the carrot too. So when it comes to a border, why I think this is a real possible win for Trump in the campaign and, once elected, is that you can do things like this. You can say, as Les said, turn to the states, turn to those National Guard and say, shut that border down, shut it down, and we'll get this done at a federal level. Then you turn to the federal level and you give your opponents the carrot that they want. That's the stick. Get the border shut down. But here's the carrot I'm going to hold out for you, Democrats. I know you really, really want more immigrants in here. Let's do immigrant reform. Let's increase those H-1 visas from 75,000 a year up to 250,000 a year. And then the next year we'll go up to 500,000. And the next year, 750. And so if you can say, but you have to tie it to it. You say, look, Democrats, help me shut this border down. And we will open the can of immigrant reform. That's the carrot that's needed here.
I don't agree with that, Doc, just for the simple fact that was tried under Reagan, and essentially they gave the amnesty but didn't secure the border. I mean, it was supposed to be secure the border, give amnesty to the ones that are here, and then they gave the amnesty and they didn't secure the border. So
right.
I don't think we should buy that.
Well, but it failed once. That doesn't mean it was a dumb idea. But you're absolutely right. Reagan, he gave the carrot, never used the stick, never even pulled the stick out of the drawer, right? And this is the problem. That's also why I would say Trump should close the border first. He should tie the carrot, the reform of, hey, you do this. We got 1 year. Let's close that border. Let's get a wall built. Once we close the border and we start work on the wall, when we fund that wall, that's when we're going to simultaneously or immediately after that, we'll start working on immigration reform. And this goes to Grumproof's point about, well, it won't be the Trump administration who actually enacts all this. It won't. It'll be at national level reform. Yeah, that's why I said he'd have to turn, just as Les said, Trump would have to turn to the states, to the National Guard, to the border agencies and all these other stuff and say, you guys have to close this, but we'll reform this at a national level and we'll reform immigration at a national level because we truly need immigration reform. Anyway, so we'll do that at a national level, but he only has 4 years. So I do agree that it's very unlikely that a Trump administration would see the fruits of its efforts there, but America would see the fruit of that effort.
Fuck the carrot, Doc.
There's going to be a lot of stuff I think Trump is not going to be able to follow through on, no matter how hard he comes in, just because he's probably going to be starting his trials within the first year. Like last estimate I heard was, I think you guys were talking about it, friggin' March or the first spring after the election, is when his first trial is supposed to begin. He's going to be fighting the entire administration. Yeah, just like last time. And, you know, you got all these knuckleheads up there. And so, and then it also goes against, you know, Ramaswamy was the first guy to come out and say, I want to defund like most of the federal government. That's why I loved him. I'm like, fuck yeah, cut them all off. We'll cut them all off and start from zero. Fine. You know, start slowly adding back shit that's important, that's relevant these days. Okay, so then it seemed like Trump started parroting those. I don't know if his writer or he was copying Vivek or not, or if he just decided he wanted to go the same route. But all right, well, if we're going to cut 99% of the federal government, who's going to decide what goes? And I guarantee you border is going to be part of that. That's because he's not going to be able to touch Social Security. He teased that, getting rid of that Ponzi scheme. And most of the older guys dropped him because of that, or at least all the ones I know, you know. So there's going to be a lot of things they can't cut if he actually wants to follow through on that. Border security is probably going to be a big part of it. But don't we already have, isn't the Texas National Guard down there, and some of the other 20-something states have sent their own guardsmen over there?
Yes. In fact, our governor is building like no shit fob down there to facilitate all these guard units. Because thankfully, other red states, yes, only red states are sending their state guards down to help secure the border as much as possible.
My question about is the other states are sending stuff, but you look at the numbers they're sending, it's platoons. You know, every bit helps, I admit, but yeah, I mean, battalions need to be sent and platoons are being sent. I mean, I'm wondering the real impact of that. I mean, clearly it's having one, but is it enough? And I don't think it is.
It's about optics too. You get to say, "Hey, I sent help down there." I mean, some states have more than others and things, but it's an optics game too. Now, like you said, you're hoping that every man and woman counts and helps and all, but at the end of the day, it is a big optics thing.
Well, I mean, it's not just personnel too. Like, I don't know if it was Florida or another state, but like, you know, sending their National Guards Blackhawks, like, you know, several Blackhawks down, you know, all that stuff culminates into, you know, better aid and better observation. If the Florida National Guard has freaking 6 Scan Eagle drones and they send them down to Texas to help out, fucking, I'm all about it, man. It's better than not having them.
Agreed.
If one shepherd once since Scan,
I was just thinking that too. Maybe
we'll out there.
What?
You've got some
a One Shepherd Air Force. Where'd you get that idea?
a birdie.
You've got some groups down there. You got that Arizona border control. That's a tiny little group, but you know you do have groups out there trying to do stuff. But you know, remember a couple years ago there were some stories coming out. It might have been under Trump about this border issue. I was seeing a lot of videos of guardsmen coming out saying they were just treated like garbage down there. Guys were coming back from GWAT, getting stuck down there, guardsmen, and it was back to these endless deployments like what they saw in Iraq. I can't remember the year. Somebody have to go look, but you know, how sustainable is that also, and how are we going to manage that without the federal big daddy federal government? You know, and I like to call people out. Where's all the big bad tough Americans that would volunteer for that? You know, it's like I wouldn't want my kids to serve in the federal army these days, but maybe the Guard to go down there and do their duty. You know, where's all the people that would sign up for that once it starts to get real? Like, yeah, go sit at the border. You're gonna be doing patrols and shit.
I've got some comments on that, but
I think they're there. They'll step up to the plate. I think the biggest thing holding them back right now, honestly, is the legal ramifications. In short, they'll go down, and you know they're giving up their time off work, you know, and all this other stuff. They're pouring their heart and soul into it, you know, on their own dime, and then they get arrested and thrown into a federal penitentiary. Come on.
You know, Randall's got a point, and it would be an executive order tell all federal agents they have to cooperate with the civilian groups that go down there, and then make all expenditures of those civilian groups tax deductible.
Oh, there you go.
That's right, gentlemen. The government just subsidized your new set of nods.
I want to throw this out because Les had mentioned it earlier, but like this goes way back, so a lot of people might not realize what, but Les used said the name Ranch Rescue, and that was like everybody on this panel for sure, if you knew what Ranch Rescue was, you'd be all about it. It was individually armed, prepared citizens going down to the border, and they were literally going to people's ranches that invited them on, right? And said like, hey, you can conduct your border operations on my ranch. You have my permission. And they would set up like military style operations for observing and reporting illegals crossing the border. And these guys were armed. They had weapons. They had radios. They weren't killing anybody. They were reporting. But there was an incident, right? There was an incident. I think some illegals were detained by some of the ranch rescue people, and the federal government came after them and fried them. And then after that
literally gave the guy's property to the illegals.
Yeah. So I caution anybody when you have a hostile federal government, and absolutely is hostile. Look how it's going after our governor in Texas to any of these like border protection. I caution people about going down there and doing any type of stuff outside of the state government's, operations.
I mean, they're trying to pass bills and whatnot about, outlawing that kind of stuff just to try to save the American people from coming together and going out and trying to help.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's coming against your First Amendment rights. We're always talking about Second Amendment rights. That bill is, you shall not assemble, you shall not speak. That's what that is. It's anti-training. You cannot come together and you cannot talk to each other.
Well, you have that bill they're trying to get through the House in Arizona on the state level for ranchers to be able to use lethal force to protect their property. So that's kind of, that's supposed to be the American dream, right? Americans are the army, and Americans are in charge of things, and the government stays the hell out of the way unless we need something. So that's pretty cool. But is Arizona going to be prepared to deal with the federal government on that issue? Like Brent said, that, the weaponized federal government, Arizona can pass that. But once landowners and ranchers start shooting people down there, you're going to have a federal government coming after them. Can Arizona protect them? And we still lose the PSYOPs war in the media. So the media is going to love that once, landowners start dropping people. We lost the campaign for the whole GWAT. The news had a frenzy with that. So, they'll spin it up just like the Border Patrol guy from Texas on his horse. He's swinging a lasso around. And the news spun it like he's out there beating people running, So I'd love to see that on a state and local level, but they've also got to back their people up,
Or get rid of them. Wait, now hold on. You were talking about like Trump and, he's in Vivek's, his ideas. Well, who else? That's Milei, Argentina's Milei. And he came in and how many of his like departments did he either downsize or absolutely eliminate? Right. So if
he's fired thousands of people,
5,000 government employees.
Yeah.
I mean,
they've had their first GDP surplus in friggin' decades.
I know, it's fantastic. So what I'm saying is a 1-2 punch. You have repeated Supreme Court rulings now against EPA, twice against the EPA and others, and coming out and saying, look, you're a bureaucrat. You're a bureaucracy. This is a bureaucrat. You are not Congress. You do not come in and make law. You do not interpret law unless you get guidance from Congress. And so I think that's the one punch up on the high ground, the legal ground. And then if Trump does come in and he pulls a Milei, that's how you get rid of that. You're like, well, guess we don't have to worry about, people coming and arresting us for defending ourselves. I'm dreaming big. I admit, I'm dreaming big.
Hey, Brent, I got a question since you're in Texas. What is your local law enforcement, like your deputy sheriffs and your police forces down there? Are they assisting, or are they just trying to stay out of it and just worrying about the community law?
I'm glad you asked that, because our governor, our legislative branch passed a law that is going to enable local law enforcement to literally arrest illegal aliens and prosecute them. And if I remember correctly, don't quote me, guys, but I think first offense is a Class B misdemeanor, which is like the equivalent to getting a DWI arrest, driving while intoxicated, and then a second offense is a felony. So it's not a joke. It's a serious offense. So the ACLU brought suit, and it got halted before it could be enacted, and then it got appealed, and then I think Texas won the appeal. But now the Biden administration's Justice Department is appealing to the Supreme Court to put a rush on it to bring this before the Supreme Court. So they put another hold on it now for the Supreme Court to look at it. So I think I might be mixing up my legal mumbo jumbo here, but it's going to go before the Supreme Court. But that's just one more thing that Governor Abbott has done to try to attack this problem full speed ahead. And I just want to throw out, I can't say this enough. I love Tucker Carlson. I enjoy watching him, and I agree with a lot of stuff he says, but he constantly goes after Governor Abbott. And I'm like, motherfucker, we're not the only border state, and our governor seems to be the only one doing anything about this shit. Yeah. What is Arizona doing? What's New Mexico doing? What's California doing? Nothing. I don't hear them in the news ever. And here's our state governor saying, screw you, federal government. We're being invaded. And if you're not going to help us, we are. And this is what we're doing about it.
So does that mean they're going to be changing something like the code of Texas or the penal codes, the way they can get them for something besides coming into the country illegally?
No, it's going to be the law. The offense is going to be you are in our country illegally. So we'll see what happens. I want to welcome Modern Frontiersman. I was actually on his stream last night with Randall. I just popped in, he popped into to ours tonight, and ended up being a 3-hour conversation. But welcome, brother. He's a Marine Corps veteran, served in Ramadi.
Rob, what's going on, dudes?
What's up, brother?
I've been sitting here watching this whole time, waiting for my kids to lay down, and I had to whoop some asses before I got on.
Nice.
Nice.
I'm gonna switch these screens around and see which one looks the best.
Me.
There you go. Is that what you prefer, Doc?
He's got to be maximized.
All right. All right. So anyways, carry on. My rant's over, gents. My transmission is done. Out.
Wasn't Arizona putting up all those containers down there too? And then they got sued to take those down.
Oh, did they?
What was that, Arizona?
I don't remember. I know what you're talking about.
So I mean, it doesn't.
Yeah, they were. They had to take their shipping containers down too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, anything that a state does to try to curb this threat, the federal government steps in and sues them. Whether that's water,
which boggles the mind because it's in their state, it's on their it's in their easement or where they're laying and all. So it is a big you scratch your head to go, who are they to come and say, okay, I can't deport somebody, I can't walk them to the border and chuck their asses over. Okay, I can't do that, but I should be able to make sure that I protect my waterways or my roads in and things. Once right out, you could have the border right there, and 400 feet behind it, there could be, Texas Rangers or whatever. So that's the one that scratches your head is how does the federal government get off to say that Texas, Arizona, California, the border states, even the ones up north that, hey, if I want to keep yahoos out, I should be able to. I should be able to control the flow of illegals. You can't control the flow of interstate because people can come and go freely. But, luckily we're, I'm in Virginia, so we have some worries, but nothing like you guys. So it makes it scratch your head.
Well, you've also got I think these are very interesting times, especially for my life. Actually, getting to see states give the middle finger to the federal government. And if you think about it, like remember, Brent, you and I talked about this a while ago when Texas started mobilizing the National Guard. The media spun it up like there was going to be this battle, like a legit fight down there between the feds and Texas National Guard. It's like, what can they really do? It's the federal government is so freaking dysfunctional. Like, okay, so they can try. People think all the military's woke. They can try to mobilize an army unit down there. Guess what they're going to do? It's going to be a whole bunch of conservative grunts. They're going to go down there and smoke and joke with the National Guard dudes. It's like, it's great to see these governors and all these people on the state levels realize that it's the federal government. It's like they could, and I've always joked about it. It takes one governor to have the balls to stand up to them and say, look, we're not playing these games and you're not going to push us around. So the border issue is a great precedent and an example. So now what about the friggin' IRS? It's like that could be the next step. Ban federal income tax in the state. What are they going to do? They're going to deploy IRS agents with their guns to enforce it. It's like interesting times, man.
Well, we're on that note, Randall.
Well, they'll selectively enforce it.
Yeah. on that note, what has the federal government done since Greg Abbott said, we're not fucking taking this shit down? They haven't done anything, and it just kind of the story just kind of dissipated. Yeah, I remember getting text messages saying like, "Hey, Texas is about to have another Alamo," and I'm like, well, it never happened. The story disappeared.
Well, like you said, I mean, it's not like there's a bunch of guardsmen and DPS guys and Fed agents down there that are goddamn standing off. I mean, the grunts in the trenches, they're on the same damn side. They want the same thing. It's the bureaucracy and the higher ups that are, making it seem like they're at odds. But yeah, the guys in the trenches, 99.9% of them, they're all on the same team. They want to keep the country safe. They want to throw yahoos back across the fucking river. Yes, they want to go in there and save dudes. They, preservation of life when they need to. But, those guys down there, like you said, I don't see it. Not in Texas like, Brent is, but I couldn't see that the guys are at the heads. It's all up in Washington and up in wherever the capital of Texas is.
Yeah, there's these comments are delayed, but I saw one that said Trump had 4 years to build the wall. And what a lot of people don't realize is most of the material they purchased is still sitting down there. Some of the contractors are there, at least the companies are still getting money, because as it turns out, the government is the worst at backing out of contracts. So the wall, all the material was paid for. A lot of the contract labor is still coming out of our pockets.
And they learned
that's the federal government.
They learned too that during that, if we all remember, there was a whole lot of court cases that were putting that shit on hold. So they were already laying hey, we're going to put them in court to stop it. Some, freaking people in other states who didn't agree with it, who aren't even in Texas, who don't have a dog in the fight, saying, hey, we're going to sue federally so that they put a stay in there, and then he's got to stop, and it slowed the process down too. And of course, you got to control the money for the government too, because they were trying to take the money out and everything. So that was a big thing that slowed it down too. So, but you can look at the pictures of before and after, and it was still a lot of physical barriers were built, as they like to say now. Mm-hmm. Because why? Walls work, right? Fences work.
Yeah, and the argument is, well, they'll just find another way in. Like, sure, it's the cartel, man. They're rich as hell. They own half our politicians. I guarantee you, all our politicians that are against this are owned by the cartel. So, yeah, they'll find another way in, but you at least want to close the damn door. You got to have a door on your house. That's a start.
Well,
and then you can start looking at the other stuff.
And the thing is, when they find another way in, they tunnel underneath. They make a hole in in the wall. They run around the fact is the wall still works. They're just finding ways to penetrate it. It's easier to patch. It's easier to patch a hole in the wall than it is to build another wall. And so I agree. And the whole money thing. Do you remember that? They're like, it'll cost us $6 billion. I'm like, how much have we sent to Ukraine? I mean, 60 billion is the package that everybody's arguing about. 60, 10 times. 10 walls could have been built by now.
We're still paying the Taliban. We paid the Taliban for security during our exit. We're still paying the Taliban. Go look it up. It's part of our NDA package. The next Ukraine-Israeli bill is going to be in there, paying the Taliban. So take that fucking money to finish the wall.
Yeah, the money is, it's never really the money issue. It's, you have the money. Like Doc is saying, we hear that too. Every time you hear, oh, this package is going up to Congress, they want to send this much money to Ukraine or to help out even Israel, are like, hey, hold on. All that money, and like you said, it was only going to take $6 billion to complete the project. Even at a federal project, slow rolling, 6 guys there with 2 guys working, that shit could have been done.
Yeah. So yeah, I think this is Trump's winning. I could be wrong, but to me it seems like this is his winning argument, because as much as the Democrats are going to pretend, they have to pay lip service. They're going to pretend that they hate it. Their constituents are pissed. I don't disagree with Randall. I know they're on the take. There's enough Democrats, that and any politicians that is against us defending our own country is on the take. Someone is paying them off. I get it. But the point is that even that politician still has constituents they have to answer to, or the constituents say, hey, you know what? I don't need you anymore. They lose their election, and now the cartels can't pay them anymore because they're not in a position of power. So this is a balancing act even for the cartel-paid American politicians. They can't just simply ignore it either.
That's a good point. And the constituents have to be paying attention too.
Which they're not.
It's not it's not up to the one guy and one branch to solve the problems.
No, but you're right. But here's the constituents. Go to Chicago. Go to Southside Chicago. They're furious. They're furious that the illegal immigrants are in their neighborhoods, taking their, subsidiaries and, and crowding their apartments and crowding their grocery stores. And they're saying, we don't have enough grocery stores right now to feed us. And you're coming here taking our money, taking our space, and taking our groceries.
Yeah, well, they were also pissed about their lockdowns and stuff, and they still replaced Lightfoot with another shithead. So
yeah, that's true.
They're gonna keep voting the same exact way. They don't learn.
I agree. They don't learn, but there is resentment growing, right? I just saw a story about the Senate race for Feinstein's seat, and it's a older guy. For life of me, I can't remember his name, but he was a former Dodger. He's running as a Republican.
Steve Garvey.
Yes, for Feinstein, Feinstein's seat. And I guess it's actually close. And we're talking about fucking California. Feinstein's seat.
Yeah. That's because
there's limits to everything.
Yeah.
In these blue states like Maryland, Massachusetts are great examples. Every now and then they get Republican governors. And it's not that these guys do anything particularly awesome while they're Republican governors. It's just the people telling the other party, hey, you got to rein it in. You got to calm the hell down and stuff. And the Republican governor will come in and say all kinds of things and everything. And a few things, the more really egregious stuff will get stopped up and everything. And then he gets voted out right away. Next election, he's out. The other party's back in, like, okay, we learned our lesson.
It's like that here in the Commonwealth.
Yeah. I mean, Jared, to your point, they got rid of Lightfoot, right? And then they got another shithead and they put that person in. But the point here is that guess what? Lightfoot isn't on the take anymore because she's not in power anymore. So she can't, her corruption essentially ends there. Who's going to pay her money? Who's going to pay her off? She has no voice and no influence anymore. And they don't want to lose that. Ultimately, no politician that's on the take wants to lose that. And that's certainly true in Washington, D.C. also. The drug cartels are not going to continue paying those politicians that lose the election because their constituents are angry about illegal aliens inside of their communities.
Yeah, but it's like what I said with the COVID stuff. You know, you talk to those people in those areas. You know, the women there, they'll complain about not being able to walk down the streets, and you say, "Well, how do you feel about constitutional carry?" You know, "Oh, that's crazy. What do I need a gun for?" It's like, all right, well, I just offered a very simple solution. You know,
Yeah, right. When are they going to stop killing our children? When you guard schools like you do your banks and your sports centers and, you know, everything else. Once you start treating your children as precious, they won't have access to them anymore.
I don't know if you guys are on Instagram. Well, a lot of you are on Instagram, but if you follow like Mr. Guns and Gears page, like almost every day he posts a video of like just ridiculous crime that's going on, and it'll caption it like, "Hey, let's see what's going on," and you know, fill in the blank, Blue City.
It's a fucking free for all.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous, and it's like those places, man. Who voted? This is what you wanted, man. Summer of Love 2020, defund the police. So
it's a great forcing function. Let the blue cities fail. Let them fail. They won't completely fail, guys. They won't. You know, they'll be overrun. It'll become, just a massive ghetto like Detroit. And then people will start pushing back and saying, "Wait, this isn't right. This isn't right." What makes
you get Baltimore?
Yeah, well, I'm saying
Baltimore.
I don't know, man. I tell you what makes you conservative, but a victimized liberal.
Nope. Then Maryland would be red as red could be. Look at Baltimore. Baltimore had been controlled by the other side since the 1950s. Republicans get nowhere in the city of Baltimore. That city is wrecked. That city had nothing going on in it since the 1950s, and nothing will go on in it. It's just it is a hollowed out thing unless the state comes in and builds a new baseball stadium or something like that. It's just horrible. I mean, the Inner Harbor used to be the nice place to go. Literally, you can't go one street deep from the Inner Harbor now, and the Inner Harbor is gutted. I mean, nothing good happens there. Nothing good's happened there in generations. And if something's not done, that will be Philly. That will be Detroit. That will be Chicago.
I'm just saying the cancer's got to grow. There's eventually a point where it dies, and the trees have to fall over in the forest, and then a new forest grows up. That's the forcing function I'm talking about. Let it get worse is what I'm saying. I know how bad it is. Let it get worse. Let it get much worse. That's how a cancer eats itself.
I tell you, down here, a lot of the people that, in the past were, they voted emotion over logic, or their perception was always emotion over logic just because they hated Trump. So they decided they needed to hate every Republican or any idea that any Republican had contrary to, to Obama. I mean, the majority of them, at least the ones that I know, dude, they've been swayed so hardcore. They're raising red flags like proudly. And I mean, here in South Florida, it's a lot of implants from New York. I mean, it's a lot of blue down here, but there's the red voice is rising over here. And I mean, we're not like Baltimore. We're a big city, but I mean, we're just too congested to let Baltimore happen down here. There's a lot of patriots down here. They're just laying low, and even the ones who were vocal against, Republicans or the whole idea, a lot of them have, they switched sides. I mean, they're feeling it at home. They're feeling it every day at work. They're feeling it in the wallet. Like I said earlier, Trump being on the news every fucking day, another fucking thing thrown at him, another charge. I mean, it makes people think, but like, why? Why so much? Why are they targeting him that badly? I mean, it's been fucking going on for 8 years. I mean, more than that. I mean, when he was president, it started, and they ignored it. They ignored it only because they didn't like the guy. You know, now they still don't like the guy, but they're seeing the big picture, and I think that's what's happening across the country. And that shit that's going on in Texas that you mentioned, that state law, I mean, that needs to be a fucking federal law, man. I don't know why it isn't.
Well, it is. They're just not enforcing it.
Well, you just hit the nail on the head, Brent. I remember a case back in the 90s. An illegal alien showed up in some little podunk town in New Hampshire, and the local sheriff arrested him, called immigration and everything, and immigration said, we're too crowded, we can't, just let him go. And he's like, I got room in my jail, I'll keep him here. And the Fed showed up and took him out of jail and let him go and stuff. So the problem's always been there. I think that was like 94 or 95. I remember G. Gordon Liddy made like hay out of it for weeks on end and stuff on his radio show. But yeah, I mean, so that problem's already always existed and always will exist, probably.
Hey, I'm laughing because there used to be a guy on YouTube. His channel was called The Amazing Racist. And he'd go to Home Depot and pick up all these illegals, and he'd drive them to the fucking immigration office and start screaming, La migra, la migra. And
I remember that.
And they'll haul ass and shit.
Oh, that was old YouTube, man. That was like when it first started.
You remember that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody re-showed it to me actually like a week ago too, and I went, "Wow, that's old school right there." But it's funny.
They'd be throwing rocks at the guy's truck as he's trying to drive away and stuff.
In regards to all those liberal cities and stuff, I just thought about a cousin I have that lives down in Birmingham. Me and Randall were talking about, mentioned Birmingham the other day, how bad it is in some places. And, but he's super liberal. I don't have very much liberal family, but he's like one of these extreme libtards, and he's on some kind of board down there in Birmingham. But no matter how bad it gets, because of liberal policies, he still says Birmingham's like the most wonderful place in the world, and it's so good because of those policies. But then complains about the things that come out of those policies, but cannot connect the policies with the problems. There are so many people that are just so hardcore set on their side, red or blue on their team, that they cannot think anything outside of that. Yeah. And that's crazy.
Well, that's the 1984, I have a lot of friends on the European side. They still absolutely hate Trump because the news over there is 100% left. And I've had German friends that have traveled to America, and they do the typical European trip. They go to Las Vegas, lose a bunch of money. They go to San Francisco, go to Pier 39, then they go down to LA. Then they might fly to New York and go home, and they say they've seen America. But I've had friends, no shit, this is what they do. And I've had friends come back and say, man, what happened to San Francisco? It's horrible. I'm like, yeah. And they're like, yeah, you guys need to get that capitalism under control. It's no shit, man. It's the 1984, especially on the international level, it's insane. That's why I talk about there's a lot of good ideas we're floating around about the border and stuff, but what are we going to do about the media and the information operation side of it? Because dude, if we're on the level in America in some areas where the UN could easily invade us. Somebody could invade us to say they got to save us. And there's a lot of people I know overseas that would totally support that because they have no clue what's actually going on. Like if you talk about the stuff at the border, it's being sold as they're all war refugees that we created. And we just want to keep them out because we're big bag meanies. It's like,
yeah, I mean, that Iraqi tour guide that I interviewed the other day, he said that his cousin or his brother or somebody came to New York a few weeks ago and come back and was talking about how dangerous America is, that America is so much more dangerous than anywhere in Iraq. I'm like, bro, you've seen New York. You haven't seen, the way America really is.
And then their first solution is more gun control. We got to get rid of the guns in your country because it's so violent. And then I'll talk to them like, yeah, well, the bad guys are the ones causing the problems in the gun controlled areas. Oh, well, so you really need to get rid of guns. It's like, all right, well, what point do we realize we're fucking special ed here? and we're going for solutions that can't exist.
Pigs don't know pigs stink.
Yeah. Well, you're seeing a massive conservative movement sweep Europe, by the way. I mean, the farmers are upset because they're being oppressed and their farms are being taken from them. People are tired of their kids being accosted and women being raped by all of the, influx of immigrants that had, look, immigrants are a wonderful thing. They really are when they come in and assimilate. But nope, there's not been any effort to assimilate them, and they're not assimilated. So they've taken over whole cities with their own militia that patrol and everything else. And so whether it's safety and security, whether it's economics, whether it's, just bad trade deals, you name it, you're seeing a conservative wave take over Europe. And now that I think about it, I mean, the whole thing is that they've been for 30 years, they've really beat up their military. If you're military, they openly say, if you're in the military, you're not crazy to the point where we can put you in an institution like a hospital, but you are, borderline schizophrenic, crazy, your violent tendencies, all this stuff. So it's just better that we put all of our crazy people in the military. And this is what they do with their patriotic people who say, hey, I'm proud to be a German or French or, Pole or whatever it is. Put them in the military because they're crazy. Well, then you had the war in Ukraine. And now they're all going, maybe we shouldn't totally defund and beat up and, and tarnish the people that we're going to rely on to save us. So I think you do see these for many, many reasons on many fronts. You're seeing a conservative movement in Europe, but Europe will never understand America. It will never understand our Constitution, our first 10 amendments, certainly not our first and second. Germany does not have, they don't have free speech there, man. You can say something on Facebook and the police will come to your door and will arrest you. That's true throughout Europe. Okay. There's no place in Europe that says, well, we have free, some are freer than others, but none of them have a First Amendment. They don't have free speech. So of course they don't have a Second Amendment. I don't think America is a beacon of light to the rest of the world. And I don't ever want America to become like, why can't we just become like Europe? We fought a war to not be like Europe. We came here and then said, you know what, you guys get the hell out. Why would we now say, well, we want to be like Europe? No, I don't. I don't want to be like Europe. So, and Europe's never going to understand that. They're never going to understand that. But we're lovely. We like us. Surely everybody wants to be like us. Oh, yeah? Ask Putin.
Well, and France just voted by an extreme majority to make abortion some kind of constitutional right. Like they have a constitution there. But it's, stuff like that. I have seen a kind of, not really conservative wave, but just more people starting to realize the implications of their decisions and voting. But I don't really think it's enough, or they're not vocal enough. Germans are still terrified to be patriotic at all. They're still kind of recovering. The only time you see Germans being patriotic and even waving a flag is around the World Cup season. Other than that, it's taboo to be flying a German flag. So it's Les, you've been over there a lot. What have you seen up there where you're doing your matches and stuff?
Well, the thing I've noticed, you're right on about the Germans there, Randall. I've noticed when I brought them to the Smithsonian and you walk by an exhibit of German aircraft, of course, the swastika's on it, they physically recoil from it. Going, oh, I don't like that. It's like, it's okay. War's over. We get it. You're not a Nazi. Like they physically recoil when they see it. And you're right. There's not nationalism there the way we have it here. The other thing I've really noticed in Germany is the generational difference. Whereas the younger generation is against conscription, against the military, like Doc mentioned, but people my age are regretting that conscription went away. And they're very much that it needs to come back, and that they feel Germany lost its work ethic when it lost conscription.
Yeah, I interviewed one of my German buddies. He's actually a firearms instructor over there. We had a pretty cool talk about gun ownership and stuff, but he mentioned that specifically the conscription, and it wasn't just military service. Like I have German buddies. You know, the German army, believe it or not, still has pretty high standards. So if you wear glasses, you're not going into the infantry. It's not happening. So even if you were unfit to serve in the Bundeswehr, you could just go, or if you didn't want to do military, you could go into the civil service side. So it was service to your country in either aspect. And if you went the civil service route, you know, I think it was like a 9-month minimum you could do. That's a good enough time to do some service, you know, to realize how much it sucks and how hard it is, but also to find some kind of sense of pride in what, you know, the service brings you.
Yeah, the contrast that when I go to Finland, one of the things that amazes me is conscription is universally accepted, universally understood. And what really surprised me is the high number of females I met over there with military experience. I've run into female company commanders. I've run into a lot of soldiers. One of my friends over there, his son went in, did his time in the infantry, actually extended his enlistment a little bit, and now is running the family business. His sister is totally staying in the military. She's making a career out of it and stuff. I mean, they just have a different mindset, and I think you find that probably changes with your proximity to the Russian border, because I'm seeing a lot of news stories where the Balkan states are very much getting into bringing conscription back. And I think it was Lithuania has started what they call the SAS, Saturdays and Sundays, their new reservist army. And the Poles are getting very much buying into being armed again. But then you start moving west, and it's like you said in Germany, the French, the Belgians, like even Britain started talking about maybe we need a citizens army, and politicians fell all over themselves to deny, no, we don't need that. We don't need that. So I think the farther you're removed from the threat, the less you think it's something you have to worry about.
Yeah, the Germans are still, you know, militia talk and citizen army and Second Amendment and stuff. It's out of the question. It's like you're a nut job if you think in those terms. And I would talk to my buddies, mostly the younger people, about that. It's like, well, you know, look at the Ukraine thing. Like a lot of the initial stuff was from just local people, like farmers with tractors blowing shit up and stealing Soviet vehicles. You know, that's a pretty big deal, instead of just sitting around waiting on your non-existent military to show up. But they think it's crazy, man. They really do. When I had German buddies out here to my cabin, they thought it was cool as shit, man, walking around with guns, you know, doing whatever we wanted. But, you know, they get back home and they're just like, well, we have the police, you know, and it's like, where I was in Germany, you know, dude, you didn't see a cop for like a month, and it would have to be something big going on. You just don't see them. It says something to the German people, especially in the villages. They're pretty responsible. They police each other pretty well. But, you know, it's kind of like we were talking about people in the cities over here not understanding the issues they've helped to create. You know, they're like, well, only the police should have guns. And it's like, you mean the fucking police that you've been defunding for the last decade? Like, they're going to show up and save your ass? They don't even have money, you know, or in half of them fucking quit in these cities. So, you know, defund the police, but only the police should have guns. How much sense does that make?
On top of that, those cities that are like that, they go after their officers relentlessly. So that you have like the Ferguson effect, and they don't, you know, those police just do like the bare minimum. Like they just take the report, man. You think they're going to stick their neck on the line when, you know, hey, that's their career. They're putting food on the table for their families. Like, you think they're going to go the extra mile when they work in a left-wing city that their, you know, overzealous left-wing freaking prosecutor is looking for every excuse in the world to prosecute those officers? Like, dude, it's I don't know how those places sustain anything. I can't imagine somebody wanting to be a cop in a place like New York City or or Chicago. Like the only thing I can think of is like those dudes were there before. I can't imagine being a young man like wanting to go in law enforcement. It's like New York is your first stop. But yeah, I want to be a New York City cop. Can't imagine.
Yeah, did you see the video of the cops in New York being attacked by the migrants?
I think they dropped the charges on all those guys. All those guys that attacked those officers, they just dropped them. The DA did.
Under what rationale?
I don't know. I heard it on the radio.
They need one. You have no cash bail, and it's just they got I guess optics, but yet then they turn around and say they're pissed off that the immigrants are here, and when they had an opportunity to hold them, for assault on law enforcement, things of that nature, they still let them go. And what do they do when they walk out? Give everybody the bird. Fuck it, you're not gonna do nothing. And then they find them in the country a couple states away.
So they're still in America.
I believe so, yeah. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, no, they released those dudes, and then I think 2 of them were caught, in like freaking Ohio or something, like 3 days later on a traffic stop and shit. They're like, wait a minute. I'm pretty sure you didn't have to pay any money, but you couldn't leave the state. And so it just goes to show that 1 minute they're complaining that they don't want, but yet they haven't changed the ways to hold dudes. So
that's actually why I say it needs to fail, because the government won't. It's not that the government cannot, it's that the government will not do what the government needs to do. And we can point fingers and all this other stuff. That doesn't matter. Now, at this point, why? How? These aren't important questions anymore. What I think needs to happen is that it needs to fail to the point where there's 24 Kyle Rittenhouses per day. And I'm grabbing Kyle Rittenhouse specifically because everything he did was right. And he was exonerated in an exhaustive, court of law, with an exhaustive trial. Like, everything that kid did was just spot on, legal, moral, ethical. He was Clark Kent's, kid. I mean, he just was. He was just a super American. And so I'm not saying vigilantism. I'm not saying, yeah, let's get some payback or anything. No, I mean, we need Kyle Rittenhouse, and we need that to happen. Just keep happening. Just keep happening. Just keep happening. And eventually the government will say, I would assume it says, wow, you're killing all of our problem children here. Yeah. But I don't even think the government really needs to say anything. I think it'll get out, once that happens enough, I think it gets out to all the people in the world and says, man, don't run across that border. Don't run across that border. And if you're invited in and you get immigration, don't be an asshat, because they don't suffer fools. I think that's what needs to happen. But
240s would do the job. If we could do some PSYOPs campaigns where we pretend we've got, freaking gun positions along the border and just, superimpose it with some convoys of people coming through. Be like, yeah, they're fucking mowing people down. It's grazing fire all day, 24/7.
Fake it.
Might send a message. Yeah, just fake it, PSYOP.
Hey, Randall, have you seen the DPS?
Minefields.
DPS has like literal, like, they're gunboats, man, and they got 240s on. They're pretty awesome.
Tracer every round just to send a message. Barrel change every 10 seconds.
Well, we shouldn't have to go to the point of violence. That's, I think, the part that the point is that there are solutions that are absolutely peaceful solutions. They're rule of law solutions. Government do what government is supposed to do, right? If you went into anybody else's country as an illegal, you're going to get arrested. if you try to re-enter the United States of America as an American citizen and you don't do it right, you're going to get arrested. Now, in the end, nothing's going to happen to you, but, because you do belong here. But we don't need minefields and 240s. We need our government to do the right thing. But when our government won't, and we have criminals here,
Well, maybe we don't need 240s, but if the border states just said, hey, we're going to do a 240 amnesty, full auto machine guns, there will be a couple people out there that, will send some messages.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm saying is
the problem with that, Randall, is you have that case in Arkansas where Arkansas said, we're not going to recognize, the NFA and build your silencer as long as you keep them in Arkansas. And then soon as somebody did, the feds came in and Arkansas went, oh, yeah, we all probably shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
Let those guys get railroaded.
Look, it's not that. You guys know I'm very pro 240. Hell, I'm pro 155 howitzers. That's fine with me. What I'm saying is we don't need to shoot a bunch of, women running across our border with children in their arms and going, yeah, these are horrible, horrible people. No, they're not. We just need to build a wall and keep them out and say, look, go back to where you're from. Do this the right way. This is the wrong way. This is illegal.
Well, on top of that, the second you have women and children trying to cross the border illegally, getting cut down by fucking final protective fires and, minefields, you just lost soccer mom in flyover country in the United States, and good luck winning any future election, and good luck securing that border.
Yeah.
So,
maybe a more effective thing is send a message to Mexico. You guys stop the caravans, or we'll drop the bridges. And one of the ways you get Mexico's attention is like, okay, it is illegal for any U.S. flagged aircraft to land in Acapulco, Cabo, Mexico City, Cancun. Ban it. No, none of our ships can stop there. If you stop there, you can't stop at an American port and stuff. That would get their attention because that would be a big crippling on their economy very quickly.
Yeah. There you go.
And literally, next time a caravan forms, just say, if you don't stop it, we'll drop the bridges. Mm-hmm. Mexico has no air force. They couldn't stop us, even if they tried.
5 years ago, they had it figured out. I mean, not to completion, but it was in a lot better state, and
we're moving in the right direction.
We didn't have to go that. We didn't have to go to that route. So,
yeah, and Trump was the only one actually calling out Mexico's responsibility in it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you notice that once he called them out, all of a sudden they didn't have a problem keeping them on their side of the border and stuff. Have you seen some of the pictures of Mexico's wall with Guatemala? It's rather impressive.
Yeah. I mean,
Speaking of impressive walls, did you all see those pictures come out last week of the wall between Gaza and Egypt?
Yeah.
The Israelis are slacking when it comes to walls compared to that thing. Sorry, had to sidetrack on walls there.
Well, everybody likes border walls until it's on the American southern border.
Point.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mothers of America.
Well, we're almost at the 2-hour mark, guys. So we can start wrapping this up. I mean, we've had a freaking lively stream. It's over 200 viewers for that, pretty much the entirety of the stream. So that's pretty good. And I mean, this is the most guests I think we've had in the lobby in a while. So, hey, man, I guess we can wrap it up and go around the horn, and you guys say your final pieces, and we can call it quits for tonight.
Hey guys, so we started here talking a couple hours ago about Super Tuesday. Tomorrow is the huge primary. My prediction is, I'm going way out on a limb and taking a risk here. I think Trump has already got this. I think it's in the bag. And then he goes on the campaign. Remember what you're doing in a primary is you're saying, I'm the most conservative Republican there ever is, and then you have to win the rest of the country. And I think that we've spent a whole lot of time on immigration, the border wall. We really didn't get to a lot of other topics that we could have discussed, and I'm sure we will at another time. But I think it's because for me, this is the topic that's not only, the soup du jour and will rally his base, Trump's base, but I think this is one that resonates well with his, with the Democrats and with the liberals, and not all of them. I know that he's going to have some very serious and sincere pushback, but I think most of them at this point they're getting the message that we need to control. We need to control our immigration. And yes, I think I didn't get anybody on this panel to agree with me. I still think the carrot to that stick is to talk about immigration reform, sincere immigration reform, in addition to the security on the border. But that's my 2 cents.
All right. It definitely was a lively night tonight. We covered a lot of good ground. I think immigration and stuff like that is a subject we'll be talking about a lot in the coming months. Over on my channel, I'm putting up some gear reviews. I got a lot coming out in the near future, so I hope you all tune in.
Yeah, guys, thanks for having me again tonight. It's a good to get out there and touch base with everybody and have a good, lively discussion. I think it was Dust77 asked if One Shepherd was sold out. No, it is not. You can go on oneshepherd.com and sign up for the upcoming Bravo semesters and Alpha semesters. Good talk, guys. Stay safe. Keep up the good fight.
Yeah, ditto. Fun talk as always with these gentlemen. I'll just continue to remind people to pay attention to your local politics. What's going on in your community, individual community and up. And then if we could get that under control, then the one guy all the way up top isn't such a big deal. And, we were taught and raised that that's what the country's supposed to be like. But that's all I have to say. I appreciate it, gentlemen.
Thanks for having me on, bro. Good talk as always. Doc, fuck the carrot, and my tax dollars do not need to leave this border. Cheers.
Hey, I appreciate everybody having me on. Brent, I've actually been wanting to get on here with him for a while. He got on mine last night, and I appreciate being on here. I didn't say much because I came in here late and I missed a lot of the conversation, but maybe next time around I'll have more to say. But I would like to echo what Randall just said, because that's something I've been talking about lately too. The federal government doesn't care about you or me or anybody else. That I think that's the best thing that we can do to fix a lot of our problems is focus on everything locally. That's why I've been doing every Sunday, doing this Patriot Conference deals where we talk about organizing and coming together to kind of just make things better ourselves, because we're not going to be able to rely on our federal government to do so, because they don't care about us. That's why they're not fixing the border issue or any other issues, because they don't care to. They don't care about America, and they don't care about you and me. And I agree. I would not be sending our money to help these other nations when we have a lot to worry about in our own. Until I see y'all again, stay self-reliant.
All right, guys, fantastic stream. I appreciate all my guests coming on tonight. Great discourse. And, yeah, I think Trump is going to be the nominee without a question. So he wasn't my guy in the primary. I had a choice. The bump stock ban and all that other bullshit that happened really left a bad taste in my mouth. And, hey, I'm not even going to get the opportunity to vote against him because there's nobody else left but him. But at this point in time, there's no question in my mind that he's going to be the best person for the job that's left. So it's definitely not Nikki Haley. But in any event, the only news I have, guys, posted a video the other day going over uniforms, gear, weapons, equipment of the Infantry Marines, 1st Battalion, 4th Marines on our second deployment, 2004. Very intensive video. Spent a lot of time on it, a lot of resources, and had a lot of fun working on it. It's 2 hours long. It's a long fucking video. However, it's pretty good. So check it out. It's historical, and I think you guys will like it. Does anybody have any saved rounds? No?
Negative.
All clear.